Welcome to episode 107 of the Brand X podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, John, and alongside me is Deuce.
¿Cómo está, bitches?
I got to tell you, I was wringing my hands last night because I did a Boomer Bunker Monday. I did a Boomer Bunker last night. Then I had this show to do. And then tonight I got to do Rubberneckers. And I'm like, what are we going to talk about? And we never have a problem figuring out what to talk about. But the thing is, I feel like I'm rehashing everything. So I was like, okay, so what could we do? Now, I don't know if you have any topics that you would like to start off with.
Have you were there, didn't I? Just sitting there.
You know what? I've learned with Boomer Bob.
You had that look on your face like, oh, don't tell me the feed cut out.
No. I knew that you were there.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of shit to talk about what's going on in the world today. And then there's just other observations I've had regarding life. Like, here's one. This just came up as a topic. This is what I believe is people's over-reliance on a cell phone.
Ooh.
Okay, now just because you have a phone, I think some people feel like you have to use it for everything. And here's what I mean. When we started to redo this podcast,
yes,
if you think about it, the way it happened was I was in your area.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got to shut that off. Hold on. I thought I shut my mail off, but apparently I did not. Okay, that's done. I was paying bills before we started this.
Boomer's podcasting. Go ahead.
Right. So, but I did it online. So here's the thing. We started this thing because I was in your area,
mm-hmm.
and I shot you a text. See, in the old days, I would just drive up to your house and knock on your door.
That's true.
Okay, but no one does that anymore.
No.
So now it's like, hey, let me shoot you a text and see if you're available.
Correct.
If you're in the area, like, hey, I'm around. Are you free?
Yes.
All right. I get that. That's acceptable. Now, this is a change that I've noticed now with millennials and Zoomers, I guess. And I brought this up, and everyone looked at me like I was wrong. So if I'm going to have a party,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to have a Labor Day barbecue.
Yes.
And I invite you, and I invite a bunch of other people. And I say, yeah, come over at 2:00. Why is it that everyone feels compelled to pull up in front of my house, park their car, and text me that they're here? Instead of walking up to the fucking door and ringing the doorbell, I'm expecting you. You know, and I brought this up, and all these young bucks looked at me like I was wrong. So I didn't get the memo that this procedure changed. You know, if I'm expecting company and I tell you to be there at 2:00, if the fucking doorbell rings, then I know my company's here. So it's just like an over-reliance on a phone that you really don't need to be relying on it for.
You're absolutely right. No, you're not wrong. But here's the thing.
Have you experienced this?
Absolutely. All right. So if I can tell you my dilemma. See, you're still mobile. You still healthy. You still got all your, you can walk and run and do all that shit we used to do. I, on the other hand, am not. Okay. I have a whole thing, a whole new way of living now that I've adapted to my situation. So if someone comes up here and knocks on the door, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Now, if back when I was 30, if you knocked on a door, I'm like, hey, man, Deuce is here. It's like that comedian.
Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yes, like him. It's like, in the beginning, they come in, oh, come on in. Greg, here's some people. You want a beer? Sit down and watch the TV. We start shooting the shit. It's fantastic. I want to get back to that spot. Matter of fact, I've been thinking about that for the past 2 weeks, about how I'm starting to ease into that. Because you know me, whenever I do something, I throw myself into it. And I can't do that now because I throw myself into it, then I injure myself and I set myself.
Throw your back out.
Yeah, exactly. I always say my back goes out more than I do. That being said, I understand it because my kids do the same thing. They pull up here and they text me, I'm here. I never thought about them just knocking on the door. Because if they knocked on the door, I'm like, what the fuck? So now, like if
right, but that's like you said, that's different. If I decide to have a party,
no, I know,
and I tell everyone, hey, come over at 2 o'clock. I'm expecting you.
Yeah.
Knock on the door, walk in the backyard. Hey, look who's here. Oh, you made it. Great. The only text I expect to get from you is like, hey, I'm lost. I'm at the Wawa.
Right.
How do I get to your house from here?
Exactly.
And that's acceptable. I get that, but it's, I don't know. And the mental gymnastics all the people in the break room were making to justify this stupid practice, I just got exhausted. I said, well, I'm outnumbered here, because they're just going to dig in and make themselves right because they do this stupid shit.
Yes. The theme I had for the show today was basically freedom isn't free. And the reason I say that is because a lot of shit that is going on, and exactly what you experienced. So what you experienced in the break room was the tyranny of the minority. So because of all these advances, they now believe that they are right. But why would you, again, if you think about this, neither one of you are wrong. It's just the aggravation of what you're willing to put up with. So in other words, the text is the new doorbell.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well just take the door knocker off your door.
Yeah.
Hell, you just might as well brick it closed.
Right.
Oh, you're here? Climb in through the window. Right? Why have a door?
Wait a minute. I got one better. You're here? Let's FaceTime. You stay in your car. We'll FaceTime, and we'll have a great time. Matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll have somebody deliver food to you out in your car.
You want Chinese? Or maybe you want pizza.
What I'm doing is I have a drone here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some hamburgers and some macaroni salad on a plate, and I'm going to fly it out to your car and drop it on the hood. So you can.
It was just I was dumbfounded because because obviously I just experienced this, so I brought it up, and I was like, I don't get it. It's just because you have something like a phone doesn't mean you have to use it for everything.
But it doesn't mean you can't.
Yeah.
I understand your point.
I remember I told you one time I went for a ride in the car one day for 3 hours, left the phone at home, and you were appalled.
I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, and we did this all the time. Because to me, a phone is still a dog leash.
It is.
It's just like, I'm leaving this bitch at home. I'm going to go out. Like just right now, the damn email chime went off because you're just like, I don't want to be interrupted. Any other time, it's fine. But now we're going to do a podcast, and we don't need the chime interrupting.
True.
While we're doing that, so all right, I screwed up. I forgot to turn it off. Yeah, so shoot me.
No,
but it's just like
I don't mind that one time.
But it's just this tyranny of the phone. Like everyone,
it is.
It's like a remora attached to a shark.
You know what it is? It's a lifeline. So in other words, you said you went out for a 3-hour ride, and my first thought was like, what would happen if you broke down? What would you do?
Someone else has a phone.
What do you mean?
Someone else will have a phone. Hey, you need help, buddy? Yeah.
Can I borrow your phone? Okay. All right. Yeah, okay. You're down with that.
Yeah.
Before.
But then again, my cars have OnStar and all that. Most of the modern cars do. So you have that out.
Yeah. If you're out in your car and you break down, you can just hit OnStar. Matter of fact, I think OnStar. I do not have a car that is new enough to have an OnStar. You can make phone calls from OnStar too, can't you?
Yeah.
All right, so if you're in trouble, all right, so you left your phone home, but your car's a phone now.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of. All right, so that's not that big of a deal. But, when we were younger, we didn't have cell phones. So if you broke down, you'd walk to somebody's house, knock on the door. Hey, I'm broke down.
Look for a payphone.
Yeah, a payphone. God forbid you should try to. There's one payphone that's still that I know that's in this area. It's over in front of the Heritages on Jessup Road. And it's a payphone. And it's never taken down, still there.
And let me tell you who's using it. Meth addicts.
Meth addicts?
People are making drug transactions. Every time I see a payphone, it looks like the cast of Breaking Bad is surrounding that goddamn payphone. So they got the scabs on their face. They're all dressed like Pinkerman. So that's where they get their drug transactions if they don't have a burner phone.
Yeah, burner phones are expensive. All right, so here we go to the freedom isn't free anymore. And the reason I say that, I guess I briefly talked about, or I texted you. We don't even talk on the phone anymore. We text back and forth. Before we would just pick up the phone and call and you go, hey, what's going on? And you would just say, hey, listen, we're going to go, when do you want to do it? Thursday? Okay, what time? 11 o'clock? Fine, that's fine.
That's what texting is for.
Okay.
Short, concise info. I'm almost there.
Yeah. There we go.
Hey, I'm lost.
So I talked about Podcast Movement, which is a podcast conference, and the groveling that Podcast Movement did publicly through Twitter.
Something else we don't need. TikTok, Twitter. Everything we don't need begins with T. Except for titties.
We do need titties. All right, so Podcast Movement made this big guffaw because Ben Shapiro showed up and walked around the floor for like 15 minutes, took pictures with people in a booth that they paid for.
Yeah. Top dollar, I'm sure.
Right, and paid $30,000 to be a co-sponsor of the event. So somebody who had a uterus, was non-binary, texted, they made one text and nothing happened. So then the second text, they took a picture of Ben Shapiro and said, hey, Podcast Movement, what the fuck? I don't feel safe having him here. And the apology, the falling on the sword from Podcast Movement about how we're sorry and you're right and
we screwed up.
We screwed up and everything that happened. And this is from the tyranny of the minority. This is what's going to ruin this country, is the tyranny of the minority and the unacceptance of people that you don't agree with. That's the problem with this country right now.
You know, it's funny because I went to, like you did, Camden County College, and I took a management course back when I worked for Lorillard because I was in the program. And the professor had said, who makes the decisions, the majority or the minority? You know, and most people raised their hand. I'm sitting there, and most people raise their hands and are saying the majority. He says, you're wrong. It says at every board meeting with a company, all you need is one or two vocal people that stress the opposite opinion of what they would like to do. And the people that don't have a backbone fall in line.
Exactly.
And I learned that in 1989, 1990, when I was in that program. And once again in the break room, I made that point. And there's a couple of people in the break room that are people of color, and they took the opposite stance. They made it sound like I was making it sound like that the people of color are the problem. And I said, no, when I say minority, I mean the minority.
Minority, not minority
like
race.
55% of the people in this room like Coca-Cola over Pepsi. The Pepsi drinkers are the minority. The minority doesn't mean it's a race or an ethnicity or a creed thing. It's just somebody's got to be in the minority on any given topic.
Right.
And those are the people that sway the rest of the people, or try to.
Kind of, sort of. I'm with you to a certain point, but there's an example I can use as far as smokers where the majority ended up taking over the minority.
Right.
But I'll go back to that in a second.
What are you going to say that's good about smoking?
Nothing. There's nothing good about it. So let me go back
that's what I mean. It's tough to defend that, but go ahead.
So let me go back to the Podcast Movement thing. So I was outraged, as I do. And you know me, I immediately go to guns. I'm like, fuck Podcast Movement. This podcasting's supposed to be there's supposed to be no barrier to entry. Anybody with a microphone and a computer can go and have a podcast and put their message out to the world. And that's what Podcast Movement should be about. Bringing people like that together, letting people get their message out. It's not about the message. It's about being able to get your message out and being a podcaster. That's what Podcast Movement's about. But you had some person who decided that they felt unsafe. Okay, they're not. But okay, they felt unsafe. So they decided that with 153 Twitter followers and they started this whole hornet's nest. And I don't think Podcast Movement could have handled it any worse by caving.
They did everything wrong that you could possibly do.
Yep.
Once you apologize, it's never enough.
It's not. Because then people are like, well, we're not accepting your apology. You should have known better. You should have known better than what? Not allowing the sixth biggest podcast network in the world and like the top 10 biggest podcast in the world spot in a podcast conference. Now,
and if you read that tweet, it's like, what the hell was he doing? I mean, they made it sound like he was like, like a Clockwork Orange, they're doing the singing in the rain, like Ben Shapiro just beating people over the head with a club. Well, what was he doing? Then you see the video that they show on the Daily Wire. Hi, how you doing? Thank you for your support. Oh, selfie? Sure. Taking pictures. Thanks a lot for everything. And he walked off like...
Yeah, and that's the guy you feel unsafe about.
Yeah. As Ben Shapiro would say, what's a 5'9" Jewish guy going to do?
So the guy that really, really took it hard was Jeremy Boring, who is I guess it's the partner of Ben Shapiro.
He's the co-founder with Ben Shapiro and Daily Wire.
Right. So they had...
By Jeremy's Razors.
Jeremy's Razors. That's another example. Put a pin in that. So I was listening to their backstage, and Jeremy Boring went off. He's like... And he explained everything.
The conference call that he had with them. And...
The owner. The owner. So... Well, first of all, they called and he said, hey, listen, Jeremy said to the podcast movement guy, whose name is Dan Franks, that's the president. He said, I want you to take that tweet down and I want you to apologize. And he says, well, we'll give you your money back because I don't want my $30,000 back. Mm-hmm. I want my $300 million company not to be besmirched by you.
Right.
We did nothing wrong. We didn't break any rules. We didn't offend it. We didn't do anything to offend anybody. We were there supporting people, supporting your conference with money. Yeah. And you know what? And we also want the groveling. That's what
I was just going to say. I said, but I want my apology to be just as groveling as it was to the first person.
Exactly.
And all the Twitter people.
Yeah. So again, what happened was then we had a divide. And one of the things that Ben Shapiro said during that episode was he said, the cowards need to be punished. And I was like, he's right. The cowards need to be punished because freedom's not free. You have to work for freedom. And if you're going to allow one person with 158 followers to bully the number 6 podcast network on the globe, if you're going to allow them to do that and not say anything, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but the Daily Wire was in the right and podcast movement was in the wrong. And you know what? There's a way back from this podcast movement. What you have to do is say, you know what? We overreacted. And this is a inclusive podcast community. And you might not agree on ideas, but you should agree on the right for everybody to express their ideas.
I don't know enough about podcast movement to know enough, but the Daily Wire is so successful based on people like me that are paying them to have that content on the air. Is podcast movement like that, or are they just totally dependent on other podcasts to have this conference to sustain them? So, I mean, how do they make their money is the point I'm making.
So what they do is they have sponsorships. Like, in other words, you could be a gold sponsor, and let's say, I don't know, maybe the Daily Wire was a gold sponsor, $30,000, or maybe it was like $100,000 that you would need.
Well,
so,
right, to
so
that
you have
conference.
That. Okay.
But how are they making money the other 364 days out of the year?
This is it. The conference. That conference is how they make all their money. It's like $300 for a ticket to go to this thing. All right. They get vendors to come and buy booths. There's money for that. And then they have sponsorships.
So it's a trade show organization.
It's exactly what it is. It's a trade. That's all it is. That's all it is. That's exactly what it is.
So they can fold up like a circus tent.
Correct. If people don't go there next time, and I know there's a lot of people that aren't going to go now. And I was one of those people. I said, you know what? I'll never go to another podcast movement. And now I'm thinking about this. And my friend Dave Jackson, he's my mentor. You know, whenever I have a real problem with anything in podcast, I go to him. He is my mentor. And he's one of those guys that thinks before he speaks, unlike me. You know, he went in and he just made it all make sense. He said, you know, the thing is that they qualify to be there. So why aren't they allowed to be there? And, you know, that we have to be tolerant of other people. Now, the thing is, when he put this out on his podcast, people were like, you shouldn't do this. You know, you could get canceled. They could come for you for this. That's a guy who's not a coward. There are other podcasts about podcasting that didn't even touch it, like walked away from it like it was a pile of flaming shit on the floor.
I assume they have sponsors.
Yeah, or they don't want the minority mob coming after them.
Well, and that's the thing, because the mob will go after your sponsors.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the sponsors could cave.
If we had Casper mattresses here, because I know you like to joke about that every time. But yeah, if that was our sponsor, then you'd have some chick with blue hair that thinks she has a cock is going to call up Casper mattresses and put pressure on them. And the next thing you know, you lost your sponsor.
All right.
That's how they do it.
So again, let's go back to Punish the Cowards. Harry's Razor sponsored the Daily Wire. And one of the Daily Wire's shows is Michael Knowles. Michael Knowles said something. Some kid with like 150 followers on Twitter.
Well, you know what he said, don't you?
What did he say?
He had the temerity to suggest.
Michael
Knowles had the temerity to suggest that a man cannot become a woman and a woman cannot become a man. And that was hateful, and it did not align with Harry's Razor's ethics.
Right. So then this kid tweets at Harry's Razors, and Harry's Razor says, well, that's it. We're pulling all our funding from the Daily Wire. And that pissed the Daily Wire off. So you know what they did? They said, well, guess what? We're going to get into making razors business.
Jeremy's Razors.
They
got 75,000 subscribers already.
I'm not one of them.
Well, clearly not. You haven't shaved in decades, but, you know.
Well, let me tell you about that. Did you know what razor I used to have? You know who?
I used to use the Gillette Mach 3.
I used Harry's Razors.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, Harry's Razors. I had a subscription to it.
Okay. I used to use the Gillette Mach 3 and used it for years, but when they put that woke commercial on the Super Bowl about 7 or 8 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, well, that's that. With the Pound Me Too movement, and I had to switch to Schick.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, I just bought like 30 goddamn Schick blades. But when they're gone, I'm getting me a Jeremy's Razor.
All right. So I had like 4 packages of 16 blades from Harry's Razors. I ran out about a month ago. Here's the problem with Jeremy's Razors. To go get Jeremy's Razors, you got to buy a kit, which is a bag, and it's got balm in it and shaving cream and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't need that shit. I need a handle, some fucking blades, okay? I don't need your balm and your face cream and your whatever shit in your bag. I don't need any of that. I don't want your bag. When you decide to sell just razors and blades, let me know. Meanwhile, I haven't had a razor.
The opening order comes that way?
I guess. I don't know.
Maybe that's just the opening order, and after that, you just refill.
I understand that, but I don't want that. And again, Jeremy's Razors is like, well, fuck that. This is how you get it. And I'm like, well, fuck you. Guess not. I don't care about your politics.
I'm sure that was in their business model. I said, fuck you. You're getting the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is because...
They had a board meeting there.
Yeah. Fuck these guys. They're going to get the bag and the bomb and all that other tubes of shit that we got to give them because that's all going to come in the kit. And then if they want the razors after that, then they can buy the replacements. So I'm a man on an island without a razor. So what I have to do is just use my beard trimmer and that's how I've been shaving for the past 3 months. I have not picked a razor.
You should get drunk and upset and accidentally fuck your beard up and then show up the baby face that you did at Kavinsky's that night. Like, who the fuck's that guy?
Oh, my God.
Oh, it's John.
How drunk did I get that night?
Yeah, and now we know why you grow a beard. You're like an 8-year-old in a man's body.
So I'm getting ready.
Baby face.
I got to trim my beard, and I'm getting ready, and I have the trimmer on, and the trimmer slips off, and I go, wow, and I put a goddamn, just like a lawnmower.
Racing stripe
right across my side of my face.
Do you remember what you were upset about?
I don't, but I know I was upset about something.
I could tell you what you were upset about.
Okay, well, tell me what I was upset about.
There was some girl that you were trying to punch in the shorts.
Oh.
You know, you wanted to throw some lumber into the woodshed.
Yeah.
And she used you so you would write her paper for college. And then you wrote the paper. And then she said, yes, sod off.
Yeah. Yes. And here's the funny story about that.
So you were a bit miffed about that.
Right. You know why? Because I was stupid. And I'll tell you why. Because she was
the allure of the vagina. That's why.
Well, no. Let's just think about that. If I would have just broke it down at that time, and she would have said to me, "Hey, John, you know what? I need help in English." Imagine her coming to me for writing. Right?
Yeah.
That's how dumb she is.
Rhodes Scholar that you are.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what, John, I need some help. You help me with my paper, and I'll fuck the dog shit out of you for the whole semester. And after that, we go our separate ways. I would have been like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Again.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. That's fine. To take that story a little further, I end up separating from my wife 25 years later. But I don't know how many years later.
Oh, yeah.
I run into her again.
Did she want you to write an English paper?
No, but guess what? We ended up being in a relationship for a year and a half, and that crazy bitch, she was insane. So she did it to me twice. But anyhow, the second time I was a little bit, I was on to her for the second time. But still, I needed that after being married. I needed that crazy physical relationship after being married. I needed that for about a year and a half. And then after that, I don't know, she's somebody else's problem now. But it's so funny about that. Okay, so then I found out her boyfriend came back from college, and now she's going back with him because he was away at school. So now he's on break for a month, so she's going to just move on to him. Okay, fine. That's fine.
Glad I could help you reminisce.
Oh my God! So then I go to shave. I put a racing stripe in my beard. So then I try to trim it up, and by the time I got done, I had a pencil thin mustache.
You like Joe Jackson?
I looked like that.
Michael Jackson's dad.
So I said,
the angry thin mustache.
Yeah, and a little tiny beard, like a little chin patch. I was like, all right, that's it.
You look like the guy on the deviled ham can.
Yes. I shaved it off and then came in, and of course, you guys were so understanding.
Well, that's what friends are for.
That's breaking my balls. But within 3 weeks, I had a beard back again. It was no big deal. This is why I love this podcast, because we get into something and all of a sudden we go off on a tangent. So, yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen now. I don't know if the Daily Wire, because when you pick on the Daily Wire, they come back at you. In other words, they don't lie down and they don't apologize.
Hey, they sued the OSHA.
That's right.
And won.
That's right.
Took it to the Supreme Court.
Yes, they did. And that's what we need now. So here is my plan to get this country back together. See what you think. We got to go back to the thing where we used to say, I don't agree with what they say, but I will fight for their right to say it. I don't have to listen to them. I oppose them, and I will debate them on a point-by-point issue. But they have a right to say what they want to say. We got to get back to that.
I agree with that to a point. Some speech should be suppressed.
Okay, which speech is that?
Like what's going on in the schools where, we're going to trans your kid.
Oh, okay.
But you're not. Yeah, there's no room for that. There's no reason that they're normalizing pedophilia.
Correct.
And now they're trying to change the definition. Now they want to call them MAPS.
Right. Oh, yeah. Minor attracted people, because pedophilia has got a...
Yeah. Banging a 6-year-old sounds kind of bad, but if I'm attracted to one and I don't act on it, we should suppress the shit out of that.
Well, they're also teaching kids about sex at an age from basically preschool all the way up.
Well, now they want them in preschool.
Yeah.
Some of these radical states, like this one.
Yeah. And my point is that you can't teach a kid that because they can't understand it. Why don't you teach the kid calculus? And I know I've said this before, but you can't, kids aren't able to understand that. We had a story on the Boomer Bunker, and it was where a grandmother had her daughter, who was now transitioning into a boy, in the gay pride parade. And he was like, I don't know, 7 years old, 6 or 7 years old. And he's out there and he's saying that he's transitioning. And I'm like, does he even know what that means? Does he still believe in Santa Claus? I mean, if you still believe in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and all that shit, should we allow you to make any decisions for yourself? I mean, you can't smoke, drink, or own a firearm, in some states until you're 18, 19, or 20. I don't know. There's an age restriction. Mm-hmm. But
21 now for smoking.
Okay.
You can die for your country at 18, but hey, you can have a little bit of tobacco.
But you can transition at 6. I don't know how that makes any sense.
Well, because they need future voters. That's the end goal. As you see, with all that stuff that's going on, look at how many people are yanking their kids out of public school and enrolling them in private and Catholic schools.
Yes.
Because it's just like, we don't need this shit.
And then what's the first thing they say is, oh my God, you can't do that. We need you. We need you here because if not, we're going to start losing teachers. Well,
The ironic thing that leftists do, they do this a lot, and this is a good example. How many years have they been screaming that the problem with the schools is because the parents aren't getting involved and they're relying on the teacher to do everything? But then thanks to the COVID shutdowns, when parents are seeing what they're being taught and the parents stand up and saying, we're not having this, then they tell the parents, well, you need to butt the fuck out because you have no say in this. They want to pick and choose their position. And they do it on a lot of things, and that's just one of them that they did it on is the schools. Oh, you parents aren't involved. All right, now I want to be involved. Well, no, sorry, you can't. It's up to your 8-year-old kid to decide whether he wants to be a boy.
I'll never forget the time I embarrassed my wife at the time. We went to a class on how to teach new math.
Oh, core? Common Core?
Common Core. And they're in there, and they're like, you take
what a
this.
disaster that was.
And you need a box, and you do this and all. And I'm sitting there, I'm listening, and they go, any questions? And I go, I raise my hand, and they look at me, and I go, is this a joke? And everybody just, you know, how they turn
record
and look at
scratch.
me,
Record.
right? And I said, I'm not teaching my kid that. That's stupid. Oh, well, you know, the problem is that you've been doing it this way so long that if you learned how to do it this way, you'd be faster. I said, okay, how long have you been doing it? Let's do this. Let's put a problem on the board. I'll do it my way. You do it your way. Let's see who's faster. Well, we don't have to get into that, right? Now, my wife is trying to crawl under the desk, right?
Kicking your shin.
Shut the fuck up. No, I'm not shutting up. This is dumb. I'm not teaching my kids this. I refuse. I'm teaching them the way I was taught, the way math has been taught since the beginning of time. But everybody turned their heads. Nobody said a word in there. They all shut up. We walk out for refreshments, and they came up to me and said, boy, I'm glad you said something, because I was thinking the same damn thing. This is stupid. Why are we teaching them how to do this? This is harder, and it's easier to make mistakes. It's backwards, yes. Did one person in that classroom stand up with me and say, you know something? The fat man is right. No, they did not. They just sat there and didn't say anything. They let me take all the arrows, slings, and arrows, and let me debate them, and they didn't say a word. But they all agreed with, not all of them. I'm sure there's a couple of knuckleheads.
It's funny, like how one of the arguments they'll make is like, well, memorization does not work. Right.
Really?
And yeah. I mean, that's how they taught us in the 3rd and 4th grade, memorization of the times tables.
Sure.
And once again, the old fart in the break room, something came up, and like it was like a basic math issue. Like, I mean, it was like, what's 8 times 9? And 2 of them were pulling their phones out. I was like, it's 72. It's like, it's been 50 years since I've been in the fucking 4th grade, and I still know my times tables.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, so much for that reliance on memorization. Can't have any of that.
Tell me what your childhood phone number was.
Oh, I could do that. 784. Right. Well,
okay, so you can do it. I can do it.
Well, not only that, how many phone numbers did you have memorized in your head?
20 or 30?
Yeah, exactly.
All your friends?
Parents, your grandparents, all your friends. Like, we would be sitting at Kaminsky's. Oh, go call John up. Oh, and I would go to the payphone. Like, yo, we're here. Where are you at?
Right.
Off the top of my head, 10, 15 numbers I could have just spewed right out at somebody.
Exactly. Now, I don't even know my children's phone number. I have no idea what my...
You know what? When you see it, when it pops up, you might... Well, even if you don't have their name on your but I mean, if you see a number like, oh, well, that's so-and-so's number.
Maybe. I don't even know if I know that.
Yeah.
The only person's phone number that I could really recite, to be honest with you, is my ex-wife's. That's the only one that I can still remember.
That makes sense, because you're still, you have children together and, you're still interacting with holidays and whatnot.
Yeah, but every one of my kids have had a phone for at least 10 years and the same phone number. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know yours. I don't know your phone number.
Well, I'm offended.
I am offended, and I have rights.
I was offended, and I have rights.
Do you know
How
mine?
dare you? No.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I'm not sure. I think, was your address 9?
It was neither.
What was it?
I'm bleeping all this out just so you know.
Okay.
Because you know what you got? You got the numbers right for where I live now.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's like a lot of addresses I remember. I remember all my coworkers' addresses that I used to work with at Laurelard. Yeah, because we would write Christmas cards. You'd have to write correspondence. It was just like rote. You just learned it by rote. You know, and I still remember that half of them are down in other states now. They don't even live there anymore. Still remember them.
Christmas cards are still going to the old house. Who's this?
No, they're not getting Christmas. But everyone looks forward to my Christmas cards because I always just make illustrations of that bastard Herb. So,
Herb. We haven't talked about Herb.
I would draw a cartoon and tell you what you're going to do here. Yeah, I used to draw like if everyone had an interaction with Herb. So whatever their particular interaction was for that year, I would illustrate on the Christmas card and mail it to them. And at one time, Herb dropped by one of their houses, and they had to hide it. He says, "Yeah, I think he might have seen it. I don't give a shit. I'll draw a picture of him right in front of his face. I don't care."
Whose Christmas card is this? Who's that? Oh, Herb, that's you.
It's that goddamn Deuce.
Goddamn Deuce.
Wait till I get with him. Yeah, he used to slaughter metaphors and proverbs. And then he would get mad if you laughed. You couldn't laugh because he would get angry.
Yeah.
Until this day, my favorite one was what he would do. He would like totally butcher them, mostly by combining phrases. And my favorite till this day is, that way, if you do that and I do this, we can kill two birds with one bush. And you're not allowed to, God forbid you should laugh, you know. It's like, what's so funny?
The story I love is when you guys went down to Ocean City for, I guess you guys did some kind of group thing down there, and he wanted you to steal a chair from the hotel.
He wanted me to steal a goddamn lounge chair from around the pool, you know. And back then, that's the PVC lounge furniture had just come out. So this is like the early 90s. And, you know, it's like hotel grade. It weighed a ton. And they didn't reticulate. They were just, the only thing was the backrest went up and down. That was it. So this thing was like 10 feet long. Where am I going to hide this in my minivan? We're missing a lounge chair. Well, I don't know. There's a fleet of minivans out there in the parking lot. Maybe we should gaze in through the window and see if there's one in there. Like, they're not going to figure it out. You don't need to get Scooby and the gang out on this one. I mean, I'm pretty sure they would figure it out.
Deuce, I want you to go and take one of those chairs and take it to my house. You think you get that?
Well, the funny thing about it was we and the assistant division manager were drinking beers around the pool, and he comes out and he goes, "Come here." "Yeah, what's up?" "No, over here." So now the assistant division manager is like, well, what the fuck could he be telling him that I can't hear? We're both his manager. You know? So we get where Mark can't hear it. And he goes, later on when it gets dark, why don't you make one of these lounge chairs disappear into your van? And at the time, I was going through the management program, like I was saying. So I thought it was one of these fucked up corporate tests, you know, to see if I'm honest anyway, but to see if you're honest and like what you would do. And I'm like, I thought he was joking, or maybe it was one of those. I was like, and what happens when I get caught? Who knows you? Exactly. Put it in your own car. Good luck sandwiching that into a Mazda 626, because that ain't going to happen. You know, then I walked back and Mark was like, what was that all about? I'll tell you later. So then he disappears. Like, you know what he wanted me to do? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Till this day, I tell that story. People are like, really? And he was serious? Serious as a heart attack. He was the biggest thief going. He stole a box of cigars from a tobacco trade show, and everyone knew it. But he put on so much bluster and bravado that he just like fake it till you make it, yelling at the top of his lungs, threatening to press charges against defamation of character that they just, he got away with, like, at the time, like a $100 box of cigars.
Do you know who I am? I'm Irv.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Good old-
I'm Herb. No, I'm thinking of Herb
You're
from the radio.
juxtaposing your Jewish managers. Yeah, we had Herb at WDBK.
Yeah.
I had Herb at Laurel Lord.
I'm Herb. Do you think I would go walk off with a box of cigars? I would never do. What's my name? I'm
Legend has it he stole a tracksuit for his wife.
from the same place?
At another tobacco show, Philip Morris is the manufacturers of Virginia Slim cigarettes, and they were raffling off. Remember when in the late 80s, tracksuits were very in fashion for women? They would go out in their highfalutin Adidas. Nike wasn't even a thing then. Back then, it was Adidas.
Yes.
So these women's Adidas tracksuits.
And Puma.
And Puma was another one, exactly. So Philip Morris made these Virginia Slim tracksuits made by Adidas, but they were embroidered with the Virginia Slims logo on and everything. Probably worth a fortune if you had one now as a collectible.
You know who would look sexy in that
He
suit?
actually stole one.
My wife would look so sexy in that. I think I got to get that.
Yeah. With her 180-pound fupa.
Well,
got
I
to wrap
don't know
that up in a
Mrs. Herb.
tracksuit.
Yeah, I thought Mrs. Herb was attractive. I didn't really know.
Yeah, well, she was really something before electricity, as Rodney Dangerfield alluded to in Caddyshack. So,
All right, so let me ask you a question. Now that we're off of Herb,
yeah, he could always come back.
all right. I guess we're gonna do podcast shout-outs. Let me get to Jesus. I gotta find podcast shout-outs.
Well, check out these fine podcasts with the Jason and Mindy podcast.
Okay, and then now what? I don't know any of the other ones.
The Boomer Bunker.
I gotta find them. Yeah, of course I know the Boomer Bunker.
Who's
Let me
right?
see
You
if I
don't know
can
about
find
who's
out.
right?
Hang on a sec. Let me see if I can get into our. I gotta see if I can
Right
get
now,
into
Doug
our,
is screaming your name
account.
now. Fucking John.
Where's the Brand X podcast? There it is. Hold on. Let's see if we can get this thing to fill. Phil.
Phil
Let's see
McCracken.
if it goes. Fuck you. I can't get into our podcast thing. Where did our podcast shout-outs? I thought I had.
Isn't technology wonderful?
See? Well, what happened? What happened was, I think we got our show got taken out, and I can't. Why is it? Bear Cave, Unbelievable, Stupid, Black Clown, We Podcasters. I can't find it.
How about the Unwritable Rant with Julia
gmail.com. Wait a minute. I know what to do.
Well, I did
Hang
3
on
of
a
them. You could
second.
do the rest. And boys, as Juliet
Hang
and Dave,
on.
the producer, living their best life, you know.
All right, wait a minute. Let's see. Aha! I got it. All right, hang on. All right, let's get back into this thing. Share screen, tab, podcast shout-outs. I think that's it.
That's
That's the ones.
Well, I did
All
the
right,
first
let's do
3
it now.
already, so
Now we're going to do it over again because I got to cut all that
why?
out.
I thought it was funny. Okay, the Jason and
Oh,
Mindy
I might be-
podcast with Jason and Mindy, and you can join them live as they record on Wednesdays at 7, I believe, Eastern Standard Time now for them.
Right. And after you're done with them, you can go to the Boomer Bunker podcast with Bob and John because we start at 9 o'clock Eastern time. All right. So now I fucked everything up in the order. The Who's Right podcast with Doug and
Unwritable Rant
Anthony.
with Juliet Miranda, who's living their best
I
life in
shake
their
my-
new location.
Oh my God. Should two people that I've never met two people that absolutely should live in New Orleans like those two people. They're having a ball there. All right. I shake my head with Lisa and
The
Sam.
Robin Slim Show with, you guessed it, Robin Slim.
And the Marries as Fuck podcast with Randall and Brooke. And he also has another podcast. I got to get the name of it. I don't
You're
know
a
what
bad
that is.
friend.
Sorry, Randall. I'm a bad friend.
Boomer Bunker with Bob and John. Because it's in red, I'm going to read it again. I didn't mean that to rhyme, but it
Okay.
happens sometime.
And the Brilliant Observations podcast with Jessica. Oh, wait a minute. Not Jessica. With Melissa and Amy.
So you got it. Not.
Wouldn't be a podcast without the Jimmy calling.
And the Rubberneckers with John and a whole bunch of other guys.
Jesus Christ, with him. All right, say
The
that one more time.
Rubberneckers podcast with John and a whole bunch of other guys. I don't know because I don't listen to the podcast.
You should check it out. I think you'd like it. We got 4 new. We got what we call Dave's gone.
Who's it?
So
You
it's
and Devin
Jody,
still from
me.
the original?
No, Devin's gone. I'm the sole
Boy.
survivor. It's me, Jody, Edward from I Am Canceled podcast, and Josh. And Josh is from the Beelzebub
You
podcast.
keep doing what you did to Bob.
So-
It'll just be the John bunker.
Yeah. Let me say, I don't even know if it's going to stay in the show, but I want to go to, listen, the Boomer Bunker show is Bob's show. It was his idea. He started it.
show.
It's his show. I know. I don't think I can do this 2 days a week. I think I need to cut it down to 1. I think I want to do Wednesday nights and Wednesday nights only. I would like to see him if he wants to do Monday mornings, find another co-host for Monday mornings. And then if he wants to, he can have that co-host for Wednesdays too. It's fine if he wants to do that. But I don't know if I can do 2 days anymore. I think it's just too much. But I have to think on it. I will think on this, and I will get back to Bob. But I think I've made up my mind that I only want to do Wednesday nights. And he can certainly do Monday mornings, but he's going to have to find somebody else to do it with. What do you think?
Well, it wouldn't be that much of an issue if you weren't such a pain in the ass as a co-host and like bothering Bob.
You know me. I like things run. I
Yeah,
like
I
to run a
have to
tight
say,
ship.
Yeah, Bob lasted 20 minutes. It took me 4 years.
Yeah, I thought he was done. I figured I killed another podcast. I was like, I killed another podcast. When we get done with this, I'll be the end of this, and that'll be that. Yeah. And that's fine. And then all of a sudden he
was
showed back
very
up. I was like,
uncomfortable.
oh, okay. Dude, you don't know how many people say, why can't you do Brand X more than once a month?
Because Deuce is a pain in the ass and a prima donna. There's your answer.
Yes. There's your answer. I'm glad you're being honest. All right, everybody. Hopefully
Thursday. This will be out by tomorrow, right?
the September 8th. No. It will definitely be out by Sunday.
Promises,
That much
promises.
I promise you. Promises. Or earlier. We'll see. I'm definitely naming this one Freedom Isn't Free.
Yeah, you do you.
All right, everybody.
Take it easy, everyone.
Will you shut the fuck up so I can end the recording?
That's it. We're just getting into it.
Have you heard of the website Kiwi Farms?
No.
You have no idea what it is.
Well, I'm guessing it has nothing to do with kiwis,
No.
the bird or the fruit.
No, there's no farming of either one of those. All right, so let me see if I can bring this up. I might as well share it. I can do that here. You know what I love about this show?
Science.
I don't have to worry about, like, I can make it the way I want it to sound, and I don't have to worry about people that are, making mistakes on the fly and cut out pauses. This is my favorite podcast to do. All right.
So I've heard. And then you wonder why Bob gets angry. Oh, by the way, I listened to that podcast last night. I see you ran him right off the show. I feel for you, Bob. I've been there, done that.
Are you kidding me? Are you taking his side on this?
Yeah, well, every point he made was valid.
What, that he didn't have it on his phone and she had it on her phone? We need to know all that shit?
Yeah, I was
Get the fuck out of here. Now you're just breaking my balls.
No, it was important to Bob.
Important to Bob, but no one else. Did you care whether he had Spotify on his phone or not?
Oh, he was making a point.
What point?
No, he was telling how he arrived at that position, how he got to that.
All right.
Yeah, no, you just ran him right off. You're like Snidely Whiplash.
I don't even know who that is.
All right. That's the lead dude Wright's nemesis, the guy with the mustache with the green complexion.
Oh, yeah.
He was always tying Nell to the railroad tracks.
That's true. All right. So here, Kiwi Farms is a website where it was basically a message board from 8chan. And that got taken down. So they made a website. And basically what they would do was they would go on and kind of out trans people. And
Really?
oh yeah,
Like in the workplace, that they say, hey, someone says a fag?
maybe. Over the last year, the forum was focused on one person in particular, Twitch streamer Clara Sorrenti.
Yeah, I have no idea who these people are, but yeah.
Who attracted its ire for using her platform to discuss the wave of anti-transgender legislation sweeping across the U.S. Sorrenti, who streams as Keffels, I'm going to go with Keffels, was subject to a growing wave of harassment. Twitch shared her personal information and contrived to get her swatted. A fake shooting threat sent the police to her Ontario home and led to an armed response unit being sent to her house. Now, this swatting shit gets really, people have been shot over this swatting. You know what swatting is, correct?
Yeah, that just happened to, was it Marjorie Taylor Greene just had it done?
Three times. So was Tim Pool. Tim Pool's place was swatted, I forget how many times, more than 3. Similar attacks have ended in disaster before. Serenity was only arrested and held for questioning after she fled to a nearby hotel and posted a picture of her cat on a bed to reassure her followers that she was okay.
Pussy's fine.
Go ahead, what?
The pussy's fine.
My pussy's fine. The forum users meticulously compared the sheets in the photo to those of every single hotel in that area, finding a match through an online booking site, and resumed the onslaught of harassment, sending endless pizzas to her. Now, I don't have a problem with that as long as they paid for them. I'm sure they didn't, though. To her by name to let her know she had been found. She ended up fleeing again, crossing the Atlantic to stay with a friend in Belfast. And the stalkers followed in turn. One reportedly showed up outside of the apartment building with a handwritten note full of transphobic abuse. When her friend posted online about going for poutine, they went and basically called bomb threats to every restaurant in the area that serves poutine. Now,
some people have too much time on their hands.
Okay. Now, is that free speech, Bob? Is that free speech, Deuce?
No, Bob, it's not.
God damn it, I got to leave that in there. Hey, listen, I podcast with him 8 times a month. With you once. It's going to happen.
We got to put a name tag on. Hi, my name is Deuce.
You might.
Whatever it takes. No, that is not free speech. That's just harassment.
All right. So I have a nitwit that I know in Discord. And he is like one of those incels, involuntary celibate.
He's an ugly old dude.
He's young. And
then he's just ugly.
I guess. I don't know. I don't
know
know
anything
anything about
anyone's involuntary celibate is because they repulse the opposite sex. Let's be honest here.
Your words, not mine. All right, so this guy is the same guy that was asking you all the questions. Remember, he would ask you the question, that's the shit.
Now I feel bad.
Why? Why would you feel bad? He was kind of trolling you to see if you would know the answers to this because you're supposed to know the...
Well, yeah, but evidently he has a knowledge of history, and I respect that.
Okay.
Don't make that face. I love history.
I didn't say that. I'm making that face because all of a sudden he could be a trolling bastard, but of course, if he has a love of history, he's okay. Oh, he's okay.
Yeah, well.
He's a serial killer, but he has a love of history.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a serial killer. I'm not saying. It's just making a joke. So he's like breaking my balls that this is free speech. And so then in one of the Discord servers I'm in, they can change your nickname. So he changed mine to opposer of free speech. So I oppose free speech because I'm not down with torturing trans people, doxing them, going to their house.
Well, once again, this is like much like the teacher example I used. They say one thing, like you'll always hear these free speech people say, well, that doesn't mean you can yell fire at a movie house. But then something like this comes out, and then it's an absolute, you have a right to say whatever you... Well, which is it? Is there some limits on free speech due to public safety, or is it a free-for-all?
The thing where it becomes, I'm going to say, sketchy is when people are online influencers. In other words, they have an online presence. That, like me, okay? I have an online presence. I podcast.
You shaker and mover, you.
Yeah, shaker. I shake, and then afterwards I move a lot. So, so I have to be able to put up with a certain amount of abuse about my opinions. In other words, not everybody has to agree with my opinions. Not everybody has to like my opinions. And matter of fact, they can even debate my opinions and say that I'm hold on.
That's okay. That's the way it should be.
Right. Let me get, like, if I can get to some of the stuff that he sent me earlier. Because I put in the Discord that you're not in. I put in there.
And now you know why.
Yeah. See,
now isn't this a moment of clarity for you? No, you'll go right in. Hey, you motherfuckers.
No, I'm just saying. So his name's Bradley. And I just said, hey, we're going to talk about this. And, I said, I don't agree with doxing showing up outside their house or their work, disrupting their real life. I don't see how Kiwi Farms is, I don't see how that's free speech. And he said, let me see this. Wait a minute. I imagine I could hit the little X in the top right of my browser in that situation, and it would be like it wasn't happening. So in other words, like he's saying ignoring it. But, these people were, they could be, I don't know if this person's making money from this or not. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. So then I said, until they show up outside your house, your work, disrupt your real life. That's how some of your Kiwi Farms free speech heroes seem to operate. Yay, freedom. So he says,
wait a minute. Go ahead.
He says, you're a gullible retard who joined the side of the deplorable degenerates because of some shit you read. You mean like facts? Yeah. I actually took the time to research to see what the fuck's going on with these people.
Well, see, this is the problem with that argument. You heard what just happened in Las Vegas, right?
No.
Oh, you didn't hear about this?
I don't know.
The reporter that got murdered by a Democrat?
No. When did this happen?
Yesterday. It was breaking news yesterday.
See, I didn't hear this.
We're recording this on Thursday, so I don't know how long it's going to take you to get this out. But yeah, last night I came home from work, and some reporter for a newspaper or a TV station, I don't know which, I just glossed over it, reported about a Democrat lawmaker, I don't know at what level, for wrongdoings, and so the guy just murdered him.
The Democrat that he was the report? Wait a minute.
Yeah, just murdered him.
Oh,
Go
really?
ahead. Yeah, pull it up. Go ahead. I'll wait.
I'll have to look at it.
I have nowhere to go. Go ahead. Pull it up on wherever you get your news.
I'll just go to
This just happened last night. And I'm not exactly clear on it myself.
Hang on.
I just hit the high points. But that's what's wrong with what these people are doing, because you got assholes out there that are volatile, and they showed up at Kavanaugh's house to murder him. I mean, come on.
Yep.
Do I need to paint you a picture?
All right. Here we go. I'm going to take this from The Guardian. Local official arrested after Las Vegas reporter Jeff Gurman found dead. 4 days after the investigative journalist Jeff Gorman was found dead outside of his Las Vegas home, policemen have arrested a local official who has been the focus of German's reporting on suspicion of murder. Robert Tellis, an elected official who serves as the Clark County Public Administrator, was wheeled out of his home on a stretcher and put into an ambulance about 6 p.m., just hours after the officials had searched his home, according to the Review Journal. German, a veteran journalist who had covered Las Vegas for 40 years, was found outside of his home with stab wounds Saturday morning. German worked as a reporter on the investigation team. He also contributed to the newspaper true crime podcast Mobbed Up. On Wednesday, local police were observed outside the home of Tells, and a section of his residence was taped off. Tells lost his primary re-election bid for the local position in June after German reported a series of articles on allegations of bullying, mismanagement, as well as allegations of inappropriate relationships between him and a staffer. Tells, a 45-year-old career attorney, ran for office as a Democrat and was denied and has denied the accusation and repeatedly lashed out at the reporter investigating his conduct, calling him a bully. So there you go.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why you can't just have unbridled free speech. Sounds good in theory, but doxing people and all that nonsense.
Yeah, well, see what happened now is these incels and these guys or whatever, they get together and they're like, oh, we don't like trans people. Now listen, I'm not a big fan. How do I put this? I don't care what they do.
You just don't want it forced down your throat?
Yeah. Oh. just don't force your transgender down my throat. Yeah. In other words,
get your transgenderism in your pants where it belongs, and get the fuck back in the closet. Like Andrew Dice Clay used to say.
Listen, I'm just saying that if you have a mental problem where you were born a man and you believe that you're a woman, okay. But don't expect me to play along. In other words, dress like a woman, do what you want as a woman. They make it sound like this just happened. This has been going on for decades. The problem was that whenever one of them actually tried to convert her heterosexual and someone reached down her pants and got a handful of cock, they'd beat the shit out of her. All right. Now, I'm not for that, but then again, I'm also not for the false advertising that the trans woman should say, hey, I'm a trans woman. If you're down with that, okay. If not, that's fine. I just think everybody should be on the same page. And you know something? If you're a guy that doesn't mind a little woman cock, by all means, I'm not even going to judge you. Whatever.
Now, just to be clear, there is no such thing as woman cock. It's a man in a wig and some powder on his nose. Come on now.
I say, you don't mean there's no lady dick and balls?
Yeah. No, there is not.
All right.
And there's no man clam either.
No man clam?
No.
Man
doesn't exist.
All right. So, again, these guys, now they have no place to go to meet up and troll, trans people.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, that's just, you shouldn't be, that's just, you're asking for, and it's going to cause trouble look what they did. Do you know who Shia LaBeouf is?
The name sounds familiar.
He was the actor in the first couple of Transformers movies.
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of a strange cat, right. Very, very volatile, and for that his career kind of suffered, I guess. And I'm just hitting what I remember from a few years ago. Apparently he was setting up a camera and he was doing like a video blog kind of a thing. And these guys would find him, but these guys were like scientists. So they went so far. He was pitching a tent like in the wilderness, basically. And like every day he would like log on and say, "Hi, everyone, it's me. The planet sucks," and whatnot. So these guys got a picture of the clouds, went to a meteorological service, and they matched the clouds with satellite images from outer space, and they were able to find out exactly where he was, and they showed the fuck up. Just to troll him.
Right. Now, here's the thing.
That's going above and beyond.
Yeah, that's amazing. I couldn't do that.
That's how crazy these fucking people are.
But they can't get a fucking job.
They only just trolled him. I mean, one of these lunatics might have showed up and stabbed the poor guy. I mean, you don't know.
Yeah, but these people can't get jobs, right? They could do all that, but they can't get a fucking job. They can't be a member of society.
Nah.
Cut me a
Why
fucking
would you
break.
Want to do that? Can't get plastic surgery, become more attractive, and get laid?
I don't know.
No, but I digress.
There are some, I'm telling you, there's about, I don't know, 0.5%, I don't know how many people, that have gender dysphoria. They believe that they're a woman. And
did you see the woman she thought she was a cat?
No, I've seen one woman who was running around like a horse.
No, well, yeah, that's a whole nother. I used to use that as an example. The example I used to use was people would conflate this dysphoria with being a gay or being a lesbian. I said it's not the same thing. A man that is gay is attracted to another man, but he knows that he's a man. That is different than what transgenderism is. That you actually sincerely believe that you are your opposite sex. That's a dysphoria. And I used to always say, if you had a kid and your kid sincerely believed that they were a dog, that they were eating out of a bowl on the floor and they were going outside to poop and piss, you would get that kid help. Well, that's what these people need. They need help.
Correct.
They need to see psychiatrists, whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Little did I realize how far ahead of the curve I was, because it was in the news a couple of weeks ago. There was a student that thought she was a cat, and they wanted a litter box at the school so that this kid could go shit and piss in a litter box. And a judge, I believe, upheld this. So Superfan Dave and I were talking about this in the break room. And you know Dave, he's funny as hell. And he says, you know what we need? We need someone that doesn't give a shit about anything. He says, yeah, we're not having this. You need to shut the fuck up. You're not a cat. And you're going to go in the ladies' room and go in the bathroom and look, But, so you got, as long as you have enablers doing this shit, like giving these people a platform and telling them that they're right, because, this is how you feel. It's your inner you. That's all bullshit. It's bullshit.
It's a way of being able to say, everybody look at me. I just saw somebody the other day that said they had a new set of pronouns. I forget, maybe it was like barbecue and barbecue whatever. And it's their new set of pronouns. And I'm like, enough with the pronouns. We're not using them anyhow. Again, you could say Zer, him, all that other shit. We're not using it. So stop it.
Do you fill out any applications or anything anymore?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the sense where they ask your gender.
Yes.
Okay. Well, now when I get, because I have it at work, wherever, with all the forms that I have to, me and Diane are currently getting passports. So now when that comes up where it says gender or sex, I write male like the Superman logo, like with in the big block letters with the drop shadow, all in 3-dimensional. because, like 3 years ago, I would have never done that. I would have just wrote M and moved on. Nah, I'm going for it now. There's going to be no question as to what my pronoun is. I mean, I fill that whole fucking box up. It's like.
Yeah, see? I feel the same way. But I don't want anybody hurt. In other words, I don't believe in beating up people because they're gay. I don't believe in beating up people because they're trans.
No sane person wants that.
No, exactly. I don't believe that you should go dox them. I don't believe you should show up at their house. One of these days, okay, there was a singer that won The Voice I can't remember her name. She was at a concert, and she's at a meet and greet. Guy walks up and shoots her, kills her.
Holy shit.
This was years ago.
Was she trans or was
No,
she
she was just she was a woman, but this stalker thought he was having a relationship with her, and she wasn't interacting
Remember
with
that actress that got shot decades ago. My sister Sam.
Yes, I can't think of her name
Pam
either.
Dalber from Mork and Mindy was her co-star.
Yeah.
And this guy hired a private investigator, and they found out where she lived, and he just walked up and murdered her, knocked on her door and murdered her.
Yep. Yeah. So this is the kind of, so in other words, you almost have to be able to carry to protect yourself. Like right now, if somebody showed up and tried to break into my house, because of the podcasting I do, they would meet a hot lead serenade. I'm not even
Guns
apologetic.
defeat bullies.
Yeah. What do you used to say? Guns make a polite society. How was the?
Ray Bradbury said, "An armed society is a polite society."
Yes.
That's a quote from Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
Author of Fahrenheit 451.
Okay.
And Something Wicked This Way Comes.
I don't read books, Deuce.
Next issue, we'll discuss literature with John.
Yeah. So again, I just think that you have a faction of people out there that have nothing better to do than bully someone
And dwell on shit.
right. And then
That's how they get there. They just sit there and they dwell on shit, and then they start acting on it, and then the next thing it's bullying, and then
correct.
They just ramp up.
Yeah. I mean, if you were, and I think the other thing is that they know that these young kids are impressionable. So if they introduce this to them at a young age and say, well, are you a boy or are you a girl? They're like, geez, I don't know. Maybe I am. Maybe I am a girl. I like Barbies once in a while. And then they say, okay, they start dressing you like a girl and they start putting makeup and grow your hair out like a girl. It's like that, what's it called? Munchausen by proxy syndrome where
Munchausen by proxy.
Munchausen by
that's
proxy.
where the parent makes themselves the center of attention.
Because I have a
interacting. Yeah, they live vicariously through their children to such an extent. Some of them actually murder their children just to get the sympathy.
Exactly. And I think that's what we have. That's what we have going on here. I don't know. I do think we have to get back to being able to not being afraid to stating your opinion on things and not having to worry about being canceled and in a mob, the internet mob.
Well, fired it. That's what people are worried about now. Like if you lost your job, like a lot of people, what would I do?
Mm-hmm.
So then they have to sit in there and the companies. Deep in my heart, I think a lot of these companies, they don't want to be bothered with this shit either.
They don't.
But then what happens is you get BlackRock, these investment groups, that they're going out now. And if a company isn't sufficiently woke enough in their opinion, they'll go to John Domingo and say, yeah, you don't want to invest in this company. We don't recommend it. They won't tell you why. They just tell you, well, we don't recommend this. We think you should invest in this company instead because they're more woke. That's why.
All right.
And it hurts the bottom line of a lot of companies.
So what's going to happen is now we're going to have a parallel economy. And there's already another company that is basically competing with BlackRock. And they're like, they don't, you have BlackRock doesn't want to have people invest into your business if you're a gun manufacturer or, if you have conservative values or something.
You harken back to, you mentioned cigarettes before. I was in the tobacco industry for 27 years, and I noticed this stuff happening in the late 80s, early 90s, because every state in the country, every city in the country would be invested in tobacco stocks. And like it or not, tobacco stocks perform very, very well, especially over the long run. And some woke assholes in city councils or in state legislators would start bitching about it because they have a hang up about, I'm not going to lie. We all know smoking's bad for you, but it's a legal product. Okay. So they pressured these cities and states to disinvest in tobacco. And then they had less money, and then what happens is they start raising taxes on everybody else. You have a soda tax, you have a sugar tax, you have an exit tax. That's when I noticed that stuff starting with the tobacco companies. So now you got BlackRock and other companies. They're just going out there and telling you, don't invest in this company because they're not woke enough.
So I've never been a fan of smoking. My mother used to smoke, and the smoke, I hated the smell of it. There's
nothing good about it you can say. I was in it for 27 years. Outside of it paying my bills, there's nothing good about it.
Right. So we grew up in an era where everybody smoked. It would be more, in other words, there would be more smokers than there were non-smokers.
Well, they were almost half the society by the late 60s. Yeah.
Late 60s?
Yeah, but 1965 is the stat they like to tout out. In 1965, it was almost a 50-50 split. And if you watch the TV shows back then, like Twilight Zone and, this episode brought to you by Kent Cigarettes,
Yep.
Like they were the sponsors. But then people started getting wise. They started putting the warning labels on the packages. And over time, it declined to, I don't even know what it is now because vaping has taken the place of the actual tobacco usage. But when I left the industry, it was approximately 19% of society was made up of smokers. And that's a big decline in our lifetime from 49% to 18%. That's a huge decline.
Right. So then what happened was so then all of a sudden they started saying, all right, we're going to have a smoking section because people didn't want to, you're sitting there eating and now you got someone smoking a cigarette next to you. And it's disgusting. Mm-hmm. So they had a smoking section, which was stupid because it goes in the air and it's all over the place. It doesn't make any sense. So then what they decided, and I forget, this was like in the 2000s, like 2002 or somewhere around there. Delaware started at first where you weren't allowed to smoke in a bar, restaurant. You weren't allowed to smoke in any place like that. And the reason that they were able to do that is because there was way more non-smokers than smokers.
Right.
So, and then the smokers are like, oh, this sucks. I can't sit at a bar and have it drinking a cigarette. Nope. Go outside. And I loved it, man. After like 2 weeks of stuff, you could go into a bar and you're like, oh my God, you don't walk out smelling like a cigarette. It's amazing. So,
and there was nothing wrong with that. Where I had an issue with it was where the left always says, oh, they're weaponizing it. Well, the left weaponized it because then what happened was it was actually becoming an issue with you getting custody of your children. So if one of the parents smoked,
okay,
they would actually bring that up like, well, he can't have or she can't have custody every other week. It should be just once a month because they smoke.
Yes.
And then now they got states, they pass laws. You're not even allowed to smoke in a car with your kids.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I mean, but when it gets weaponized in a custodial battle or a child support situation, then the pendulum is swung too far.
Yeah. No, listen.
And look, it took me 3 times to get out of the tobacco industry. I mean, I was on both sides. And the third time was a charm. I finally got out. But there's nothing good that you can say about it. It's a filthy habit. And worse than that is chewing tobacco.
Ugh.
I work with guys that chew all that bullshit. And it's disgusting. They're walking around with iced tea bottles, spitting that goddamn juice into a bottle, and they just talk casually like, it's like if I walked into a break room wiping my ass all the time. I mean, it's like, excuse me a second. I dropped my pants and I wiped the swamp ass out of my butt and I just pulled my pants back up and just walk around with a fucking dirty tissue. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like if you walked around just doing a snot rocket. It's like, what was that? It's like, it's no big deal.
Oh, no big deal. I just had peppers for lunch. My nose is running. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? The fuck? We have vehicles at work.
Yeah.
So like, all right, I got to drive today. So you get in the car and you drive and you come up to a stop sign or someone jumps out in front of you. You got to make a little bit of a hard stop. Oh, there's nothing more pleasant than seeing a goddamn iced tea bottle full of brown viscous liquid rolling out from under the passenger seat.
You filthy motherfuckers, take that shit with you. Why do you leave
I'm
it in
not
the
touching
fucking
that.
truck?
It's like, and then if you don't, if a boss finds it in there and you get to be the lucky contestant that's driving. You're the one that gets written up because, well, you took chain of custody of the vehicle at that time. You should know it. So now I got to look under the fucking seat for that?
Right.
I think not.
I know. It's bullshit. So,
But I digress. That's my rant for the day.
Filthy animals.
Scumbags. Yeah. Rat bastards.
Yeah, I listen to these people that this body positivity. No, I'm sorry, no. And if anybody should know better, me, no. You should not allow yourself to get morbidly obese. It sucks. It's not good. If you can avoid it, please avoid it. I'm not saying, look, I'm not celebrating it. All right, I know it's bad. It's like a smoker.
That's the thing, because we all know better now.
Yeah.
Like 70, 80 years ago, it's like, oh, well, that's just the way it is, you know. But,
yeah, I forget what the hell I had to do the other day, and I was like, Jesus Christ. I said, God damn, I'm out of shape.
Round is a shape.
Yeah, not the shape I want to be in. Yeah, I'm sweating and panting, and sweat's pouring off my nose like in a stream.
Oh, like, you must have really suffered this year. This was a brutal summer, man.
Crazy. Oh, and then,
I can't remember a summer this hot since like 1995 when Diane was pregnant.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, I had two air conditioners.
Summer.
I had two air conditioners running in here, and I couldn't get the temperature down below 78 degrees. I had them full bore. It was that hot. The sun just bakes this house. So, saying that to say this, that freedom isn't free, and you're going to have to stand up sometimes for people that you disagree with. I know that when I say that I say that I should stand up for Kiwi Farms' right to have free speech. I do, but what I don't stand for is bullying, doxing, and harassment. That's not free speech. Free speech is talking about, how transgenderism is a mental disorder. And that, we should allow these people to, they say that some of the treatment for gender dysphoria is to transition into the opposite sex. Doesn't make them the opposite sex, just makes them think that they're the opposite sex. And you just got to have a little bit of poise and acceptance. And
decorum.
And decorum. All right? A polite society. That's all we're asking. Not just because, hey, you know what? What if we all decided tomorrow to turn on all the incels and the keyboard warriors and the people that just sit at home and torture these other people? They would be running for the hills. Cockroaches would be running for the hills.
Well, you know me. I've been saying this for years. I think social media caused a lot of these problems because people interact with each other online in ways they would never do so face to face.
You are absolutely right.
They would never do that. Because whenever there was a threat of you getting thunder punched in the throat, like, hey, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have done that. That's, as Joe would say, that's self-corrected behavior. If I'm acting like an asshole and someone corrects it, I won't do that again. That's self-correcting behavior.
It's funny. So I do play a lot of VR poker now. And the thing is, when you're sitting at the table and you don't have to worry about anybody throat punching you for what you say, so then you'll have people that'll sit there and they'll berate your play that they would never do that at a real table because the table would be flipped over. Guys would jump across the table at them. I had a guy sitting there yesterday when I was doing this, and the guy was like berating. Well, you know me. I don't shut up. I don't sit down. And he's berating my play, and I look over him, and his avatar he's this big guy with this big bushy red beard and all. So I said, well, Rusty. So now I'm going back and forth, and every time I call him Rusty, I said, well, Rusty, you think you did this, but what about this and all? So finally, by the time we got done, everybody at the table was calling him Rusty, and he was so...
Tyranny of the minority.
Tyranny of the minority.
See, you're making your point.
I am.
Hey, you know what? Before we get too far into this, because we're running a while, we fucked up last podcast and we didn't do podcast shout outs.
Okay.
It was like 3 days later and it dawned on me. It was like, Now, having said that, are we ever going to do anything with Jason and Mindy? It's like,
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Here's the problem
I think the problem is on our end.
Yeah, the problem is on our end. The problem is that I record the same night that they record. I record the Boomer Bunker.
Oh, the Boomer, okay.
The same night that they record their show. And that seems to be the problem. Now, if we could set up a time to do it any other time, I'm willing to do a second show or whatever. You know me, I would love to do this. But it's kind of hard. I would love to do something with Jason and Minnie and just kind of get that back together, get something going back together again. There's like podcasts that I really miss. I do miss Bad Cop, Bad Cop. I do miss Jerry's snarkiness.
Did you see what Jerry put on Facebook yesterday about these blood clots that are forming in people's blood and they have no idea what the fuck it is?
We just talked about this last night on the Boomer Bunker. I actually took that story from the Boomer Bunker where they, do I have...
And there's no iron in these clots. That's the weird, because blood is made up of iron. That's why it's red. But these clots are made up of like everything like but iron. It's really, really weird. You got these athletes in like, what's that?
Where do we think that's coming from?
Yeah, well, it showed up coincidentally with COVID, but they're not sure if it's coming from the vaccines or not. But I kind of tend to think that it probably is, because these clots are made up of a lot of proteins. What do the vaccines do? They trigger the body to generate a lot of proteins. So you got a lot of these, in England, they call them footballers or soccer players. These guys are dropping dead while they're playing soccer because of the blood clots.
Yeah, but not only that here, kids are dying. 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds are just dropping dead during sports. So I'm not going to out you, but you had COVID. And one of the issues you had with COVID was blood clots.
Yeah, and multiple blood clots in my lungs.
Okay.
But I didn't get the vaccine because I joke about it. I say, well, I got vaccinated the natural way. I caught COVID.
Correct. So you don't know.
And I still haven't been vaccinated.
Yeah, you don't know if these blood clots are from that or from people catching it. They don't know. They have no idea where it's coming from. But it's an issue, and a lot of people are dying. And listen, I took the vaccine because when it came out and they said, hey, listen, if you have these comorbidities and you're of a certain age,
it made sense.
You should get this. And I'm like, well, okay. I'd rather take my chance with the vaccine than with COVID because it was killing motherfuckers back then. And I got it anyhow. It wasn't too bad. It was like a real bad cold for about a week. And but now they're getting in again. And it's going. See, my biggest problem is when it gets into the lungs. When you get that the ammonia. When you get the ammonia,
that sucks.
That sucks. It's when it takes you down. I've had 2 family members die. Big T died, and I had a cousin die. He was 64 years old. He had leukemia, and he was going for.
So he was wide open.
Yeah, he was wide open, and then he
gone for the chemo treatments, and he was wide open.
Yeah, he had an infection. They were giving him antibiotics for the infection, and then he caught COVID, and that was it. That was the last nail. So he passed away. So again, I just think this is something we're going to live with. The people that are going to die from it are going to die from it, and the people that are young and healthy, they're going to catch it. They're going to have antibodies from it, and this is going to end up just being COVID's going to be the next cold.
Yeah. And what we should stress for anyone listening that wants to look this up if they haven't already is this all came to light because of undertakers. Yep. They notice when they're when you're getting embalmed, they got to bloodlet the body out, and the blood wasn't coming out. They had to open people up 2, 3, sometimes 4 different locations, and then they're noticing all this. It looked long, stringy. Some of it was like these clots was coming out like as long as a person's leg. And then they clean it up and it's white. It almost looks like toothpaste or not toothpaste, like wallpaper paste. It's really, really, and they only just started noticing it in the middle of last year. Well, what started happening in the middle of last year? Like you'd like to say, they're going to cover this up like a cat turd.
This is probably the biggest blow to humanity since the World War. I mean, this is, maybe a plague.
Well, the Black Plague
was right as bad as a plague when we're all.
That's what 30% of the population got wiped out in that. The Black Plague was so bad, like if I had it and I saw you, you'd be dead tomorrow. That's how fast the Black Plague took you out. There was no lingering. It was just like,
Yeah. Right now, it's funny that the Democrats had all these mandates. You had to get it for this. You had to get it for that. Now, all of a sudden, it's not working, and they're having problems with it.
Blaming
And the next
the
thing
orange man.
they're going to push this whole. I'm going to blame it on the orange man. Although, I'm going to say that he has culpability in this too because he pushed this. He pushed with warp speed. He pushed it. He did what he could.
Yeah.
But what he did not do, was he did not make you take it. He said, it's here. I recommend it. But you know what? It's your body, your choice.
Decision.
If you want to get it, you don't get it. The Democrats said you must take it. You must take it or you can't work. You must take it. You can't go outside.
We have a
to take
hiring
it.
problem in my company, in my department, because the company puts it right in the ad that you have to be vaccinated. And a lot of these people are showing up like they needed to hire X amount of people. So you've just put a figure in your head. And I mean a large number of X amount of people. And then they rolled this out and half of them, they got accepted. They were offered the job. And they said, okay, you got to get vaccinated by this date. And they were like, yeah, I'm out. Like half of, and we're still short-staffed. But the weird thing, the weird thing of it is because I'm already an employee, I don't need to take it.
Dude, just say you're vaccinated. Lie. No one. It's like a college degree.
You have
no
to
one
come
checks.
up with a documented piece of paper.
Fuck
The
that.
one
Just
guy
go
got
get a
fired
card.
for that.
You can get a card.
They checked. They're checking into it. Because there's the government. The government is so out of control with this. The follow up that they found out the guy wasn't in my department, but it was somebody in the company. He came up with a false card. Well, he's gone, and this guy had a 6-figure job.
He should
How?
sue. He should sue.
They get you on the
you get a
integrity
lawyer
issue.
and say you get 30% of whatever I get.
Now,
let's sue
because the
balls
company
off of
said
them.
you must do this as terms of your employment. You lied. You misrepresented yourself. Now it's an integrity problem.
Okay.
That's where they get you.
Yeah, this is bullshit. You should not, just for that being in there, it's...
Thank Christ the
is
Daily Wire sued OSHA and won because they were going to make us get that. That decision came down just before I was going to have to do it. And I was really torn. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And now with this blood clot story coming up, I'm like, man, I really dodged a bullet if the vaccines are causing this.
And you had it. You had a problem with blood clots. That's not a good thing. So good. Again, I don't understand how they can make you take a medication against your will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not mandating the flu shot for everybody every year.
Especially if it doesn't prevent it and it doesn't prevent the spread of it.
That's where they lie. They lied.
Why? They lied. You lying motherfuckers.
Rat.
You lying cheese-eating rats.